It's live there. The assumption is we're live. It says we are live, so we'll have to see if that actually is a function of it. We'll actually cut to the intro, and we're gonna have a good conversation. Your lighting just like dipped on me. I don't know. There it is.
All right, cool. It's because I was on another tab because I was trying to get the link.
Nice. See here, I'll say share on that. Oh yeah, perfect. That's showing up. Can I just pause that? Share, screen share. If I do this, okay, great. Already, so I got screen share already set up. Hey, what's going on, chat? Thanks everybody for coming in and hanging out as we get ready to do our first Outriders podcast. If you guys aren't following Chaos Prime, be sure to give him a follow. His link should be actually in the title of this video, but even after the fact, I'll make sure that all links are set up and appropriate. Chaos, are you ready to talk about some Outriders?
I am so ready. Okay. Absolutely.
So this is Epic Loot Radio episode 11. We're going to try to do our best to engage with chat. So just note that as your guys are talking, I'm going to be keeping a tab on that and be reading that. And we'll go from there. We're live here right now on Ginger Prime and Ginger Gaming Radio and even Facebook Gaming. So just note that if there's a way that you can watch it, you should have that option easily available to you. All right. We're starting a little bit late because I finished a podcast. Fridays are I'm hoping to be my podcast days. And I was finishing up the video in that case. And let's dive in. So let me kick it over here. And let me go ahead and run this. I'm going to give it a second to pause. If they gave me the ability to mark stream, that would be great because then I can come back and afterwards cut out this little going live intro. All right. Hello and welcome to episode 11 of Epic Loot Radio. This is a podcast focusing in on all things looters and more. Joining me today is the one and only Chaos Prime. Chaos, how are you doing, dude? What are you playing? And why is it not Outriders? You don't have, they didn't send you a copy. You're not actively, secretly playing this game?
I wish. Well, we should have been playing it by now, right? But it got delayed. At the moment, I'm actually playing the Medium.
Oh, how is that?
I'm actually really enjoying it. It's got a really Silent Hill vibe to it.
Yeah.
It controls a lot like Silent Hill, and it just takes me back to those PS2 days. I'm not seeing the performance issues that people are complaining about, but overall, it's really good, and it's already dragged me in.
That's nice. I started playing The Division 2. I've been hungry for a good looter and Destiny, and I don't want to be a channel that hates on games. There's plenty of people big enough, that's what they can do for a living. Good for them. But Destiny has not sat well with me this last season, and the new season kicks off actually on February 2nd, and so I'm just like, well, I'm just needing something. So I started playing Division 2. Some of you guys have been hanging out with me live while I've been doing that. So I'm learning. I feel like a fish out of water, but the gameplay feels fantastic. And I had played Division 1, but just being able to play games with friends, I think is important. And I think that's one of the key features of Outriders is that not only can you play this game with friends, but we can play cross-platform day one. So I want to explore a lot of ideas. And, so guys, if you don't follow Chaos, I really want to plug him. He does amazing content. We both have a love for Anthem, and Anthem will be coming up in the show. So if that triggers you, we understand. We'll see you hopefully in our next episode. But there are some obvious connections here. And so ultimately we'll explore that here in a little bit. But Chaos, I want to start with you. What are you thinking is your main for out of the four classes? Devastator. Trickster? Okay, I was like,
I mean, the armor set I saw yesterday, that just blew me away. I mean, I've seen the Technomancer's armor set, the Devastators, the style that they're going for. The Trickster's one is just pure win. I mean, just cosmetically alone, I absolutely fell in love with it yesterday. And yeah, it was like a man crush all at the same time. It was just brilliant. And, my favorite colors are red and black. And the combination that they used with red and black on that armor set was just astounding. I absolutely loved it.
I want to see if you're a main on Trickster, sound off like right now in the comments. I want to see how many Trickster mains, or if nothing else, I need to get some emotes so we could sit here and have like an emote for each class. That way people can kind of say, hey, this is who I am. But anyway, we'll have four things for the future. So what about the gameplay in and of itself specifically attracts you to the Trickster? I keep calling the Trickster a time mage because you got the time and space magic basically that you're bending in, being able to rush in up close and personal, getting those shields with the kills. Like it sounds like a very interesting class, especially for those who don't mind taking risks. Is that your kind of gameplay style? Because the follow up question, so is what was your main in Anthem? Is there some kind of connection with the classes in Outriders to your connection to Anthem? Go ahead.
Actually, it's completely different, but to answer your first question, it plays a lot like a rogue to me, where you can just get in and out, and I like that sort of combat. It's the skills that it has that it isn't a lone warrior. There's a lot of skills it has that can, like temporal shift, for example, where it can just slow everything down for everyone else to get those easy kills. It's a gap closing class. It can get from one place to the other in a very quick time, and to me, that just looks beautiful. Just tell me that does not look beautiful.
It looks freaking gorgeous. You like the tubes coming out of the back of their head?
Oh, absolutely.
That's a freaking look. Continue on. I'm just highlighting this for those who haven't seen it.
And it's the play style of the Trickster that I've been seeing that's actually really got me interested. In contrast, in Anthem, I'm actually a Colossus. There's only one class in Anthem anyway, and that is the Colossus. Everything else just, pales in comparison. And that's also a very brutish class that just can't get out as quick as a Trickster can.
Yeah. So for me, like you asked me earlier in the show before we started recording, and for me, I'm going Technomancer. I was between the Devastator and the Technomancer, but I had some friends and they were like, "Oh, I'm going to go rock on a Devastator," and I was like, "Oh, okay, that's fine." Like I had it was easily a coin flip, but Technomancer almost basically like here's the art. Like I just posted this just now. Let me make sure I'm in the right spot. Yeah, Technomancer. Look here. Look, this is great. This is insane. Look how beautiful that is. But it has, more minds. Like it's like you go look at this, you go read into in between the lines of it. You got the shrapnel. One additional mine can be thrown. The set bonus is shrapnel creates additional cluster bombs after the explosion. And then you have trap cluster, doubles the number of mines that can be thrown before triggering the cooldown. And then they had another one. It was like supplies and one additional mine. Like you're just like mining for days as a part of the Trickster, and it just looks so freaking good. And then obviously the armor I think looks really solid. I love the aesthetics of the game itself and how visually it just I think is very appealing. But
it looks like a spell, right?
Yeah. But it's also a pet class, right? Because you have like turrets and things like that you're putting down. And I think I like pet classes. It's something that's always appealed to me ultimately in the long run. So I'm personally really excited about that. But Devastator still looks great. Like if you guys haven't seen that video this week, like you're talking about, like you get like 90% cooldown on your rush and slam, and it's like showing it off. Like you're always doing that. And then you got, you're stacking like bleed and all kinds of really cool things that ultimately will pay off in the long run in that case. So I don't think that there's a wrong choice right now with the 4 classes. Do you think we're going to get more classes in the future with this game, being that there are 6 character slots?
I think we will, depending on how well the game does. As long as the game is successful, we will see a lot more content coming for this game.
Mm-hmm. So that actually brings up my next question. Lyric Page asks, "Rip Destiny," or says "Rip Destiny." When you talk about whether this game's a success, like we've seen time and time again, let's have the honest conversation. I'm not trying to overhype and I'm not trying to kill anybody's excitement for this game, but there is the reality that we've had a lot of quote unquote looters try to launch in the space and really just kind of fall on their head. Does Anthem give you not Anthem? does this Outriders give you any kind of Anthem vibes that cause you to be slightly concerned at all?
At the moment, no. They've already had a pre-alpha test where the Xbox insiders were able to go in.
Mm-hmm.
I did actually see some of that gameplay. It looks pretty good. Everything they're showcasing is what we're getting, and the game ran stable. It worked great, and they didn't really have any issues. So overall, and when they're preparing a demo, that's usually about 6 to 8 weeks old because they need to sandbox that in its own environment.
Mm-hmm.
So that's already like 6 to 8 weeks old build quality, and overall it looked really good. So I'm not expecting anything of that kind. It's just what comes next that
Mm-hmm.
people are going to be thinking about because, as you know, this isn't a live service game.
Right. And at the same time, is it not? Because it's an always online game. Like, what do you mean? When you say it's not a live service game, like, what does that mean to you?
To me, a live service game simply means that every 3 months or so, there's going to be updates to the world. There'll be updated content. There'll be just a roadmap of content that's going to be poured into the game. Currently, everything we're getting for the game is that. There's no plans for any DLC. There's no future content.
They're not drip feeding it, right?
And because of that, once you've done everything, what's next? And one of the developers did comment on this and basically said that depending on how the game does, as long as it's successful, then they will look into future content.
Yeah, I think that's one of the key distinction that actually personally excites me for this game is the goal is to deliver the complete experience. And
Yes.
let's say we all have fun with it, and ultimately they don't make money, and that's their definition of success. Gamers are happy, but people just don't purchase it. I could see this easily becoming a game in a year, dropping into like something like Game Pass to help continue to drive in more players to it. But what is nice about this is that they're not promising us that the rest of the game is on its way. And so essentially and this is the challenge that their marketing team, I think, has to face, is that the goal is not to sell somebody that this is going to be a game that you're playing in 10 years. They probably want it to be a game that you're playing in 10 years, but that they're not selling. That's not the package you're buying. So it's like if you go and you pay your $60 and you play this game, you have a great time, you play with your friends, you have a great time. Everybody wins. And then if they do have that success and we do get more content down the road, we can keep going. But I still feel there's going to be a group of naysayers who are going to claim that this game failed or that it struggled or that it's another Anthem, because here in 6 months, if there isn't like new content for us to go and play, we'll all go play something else until there is new content that they could drop into this game. What do you what do you think about what I just said?
Well, there's two ways of looking at that, right? I mean, there is 14 expeditions plus the final Eye of Storm. That is 15 pieces of endgame content. And that is a lot for a game just coming out. You've got the developer said there's a 40-hour campaign in there. They're always padding that. So I'd say about 30 hours, 32 hours at max you're going to get for the campaign, which is still not bad when you think about it. So that's going to set you up. You've got the different tier lists, which will allow you to go through. I don't know if this game is going to be around in 6 months' time, but if it's going to give me 3-4 months of entertainment, that's more than enough for a non-live service game. At the same time, if they do want to release more content later on, as you know, this game doesn't have any microtransactions.
Right.
So how are people going to feel about having to pay for that extra content?
I think depending on like really where your history is with gaming, I would say that adult gamers like us would have no problem with.
Oh yeah, I've got no problem.
Like, okay, like, and then especially if, let's say the DLC was something what they're kind of basing the core game on. Like, if you think of it as a true expansion, not a Destiny expansion, I think Destiny just ruined the term expansion. Hey, here's an expansion. It's like that was an expansion. That was just a seasonal update. Stop. Like, an expansion used to mean something, and hopefully we could see them kind of bringing back what that term means in terms of expectation and delivery and the content. I think for me, and I've said this in a video before, I could see them launching in this way. Like, it's a complete game, here you go, but it does require online. That's just a simple fact, meaning it does require servers. So if it's a success and people want more, then they could in my mind shift into a model which that they start to deliver content on a faster scale, but not where it's like piecemeal. Like, okay, you're going to get that piece of content you're excited about in 3 months, and you got to go log in every day and do your dailies. And, I think that's essentially what hopefully we can get away from in this is that it's a game you can just no life it if you want. You can play with your friends if you want. Go nuts, have fun, and then at the end of the day, like and then come back when there's more content to be played, and and ideally no microtransactions. That would be that'd be my preference. Go ahead.
Well, you touched on a point that really irks me with certain games currently, where if you miss out on a day, you feel like you've actually lost out on something. And I think games that go with that kind of FOMO emphasis are really bad because you feel pressured into logging in every day, every week, just to get those items. Whereas I hope Outriders is going the complete opposite direction, where if you need to take a week break, that's fine. You won't miss out.
Mm-hmm.
All the stuff that you want is going to be there in the game for you when you're coming back. It won't just, get vaulted off somewhere.
Yeah. I think the other side of it, that's the thing that's going to give it a massive amount of strength as well, is the immediate sense of cross-play right out the gate. And for me, that's where when I look at, despite like when I bring this up with previous games, like if we look at like how Avengers has done, if we look at how some of these other games have done, despite like either a technical flaw or a design flaw in the core game, the thing that ends up like just killing it, and despite the fact that I know some people were saying like in chat, rip Destiny, is that you have to at a minimum deliver what Destiny does in terms of its community. Now, Destiny is not yet full crossplay, but they're saying that's coming in 2021. Outside of Destiny in 2021, they support cross save, meaning you can still go play with your friends on whatever platform that they're on. And I think that's a huge asset, right? The fact that the community is less segmented. And as a new game and a game coming onto the scene, if you're sitting here assuming that your community will exist in a segmented way, the answer is no, is that people will default back to their old ways. Destiny will have an update that people will want to play at some point, and people will go check that out. And then they might stick around for that because the gameplay is the most critical aspect in all of this. Because if the gameplay is good, people will play the game. And I think that's where one of the things that excites me about the developers, People Can Fly, behind this game. Like when you think of Gears, when you think of Fortnite, like these guys have cut their teeth on the third person shooter aspect. And I'm really excited to see what they can do when they're like given like full range of effects. Right now, I'm showing off like their like the PC specs and the settings and the HUD. Like they are going the extra mile. That this game, if it will be insanely polished by the time that it's fully released. That it just boggles my mind. I cannot wait. I'm on an ultra wide monitor. It finally came in. And I'm going to experience Outriders on ultra wide. Like it supports it, like from the base thing. And so I don't have a clue how I'm going to stream that. Like I have no idea. Maybe the ultra wide is just for me and my own. Like, all right, I'm not trying to be entertaining or have fun live. I'm just going to play the game, and then I'll stream it from like another platform. But at the core of it, like they are really trying to deliver this game, and every announcement is like, is basically me hearing they've gone the extra mile.
Well, that's the thing, right? They're putting the work in, and you can see that through all their interactions, the community management, the developers. They're not just coming out and just singing the praises. They're backing it up with actual footage, actual content that they're showing us of what it is. They're not just coming out and just singing the praises of empty stuff. They are going that one step further that normal developers won't do, and are actually putting their content where it matters, and that's at the front line. And they're saying, this is what we've got, this is what we're doing, and we know that you're going to ask for this sort of stuff, so we're just putting it in there. And the one thing people have been asking from games companies who make games of this caliber for the longest of times is, we want that power fantasy. Now, Anthem, for what it's worth, actually gave you that power fantasy. You could customize your javelins to exponential levels. You could one-shot bosses if you actually geared them up well enough.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what this game I can see doing, with the way the mod system will work, with the way the power fantasy is going to work, with the way and the fact is your level only goes up to 30, but your actual item levels themselves can go up to 50 once you get to a certain world tier,
mm-hmm.
which allows you to break into that fantasy even more. It'll depend how they deliver that and see how difficult the enemies are. But if they can pull off the gameplay, the story, and the power fantasy all at the same time, I think this is going to be something really special.
How important is it to have a story from a looter shooter aspect? Like, how much is that the driving factor of why you go and play a game like Outriders?
For me, the story is essential. I need to be invested in the world of something I'm playing. I need to be interested in what I'm doing.
Mm-hmm.
For the longest of time, Destiny had me interested. The gameplay was great, but gameplay only goes so far, at least with me. I need to be interested in the lore, the world, the whole kind of environment needs to draw me in, and it needs to provide me that reason that I want to come in and protect this world or do something with this world or just continue the story or whatever it is. But for me, it's integral to the actual game. It's not just a one and done. It's that aspect of the world is, for me at least, paramount.
So chat Matt is actually saying, how long do you think it's going to take for an experienced player to get through the campaign and the end game? And obviously you say like, they've announced like this has got like a 40-hour campaign, which you can kind of feel could be kind of, padded. There's also lots of side quests and things like that to do within the game itself. And we're not even counting the end game. So if they're like estimating at 40, I would say if you've got a kind of a focused vision, you could probably get through this. What do you think? 30 hours if you're,
hours is about right.
Especially like, and then even faster if you're skipping cutscenes. What will be interesting, and honestly, chat, I would love to know y'all's thoughts because I've been talking with, and I'm not going to name him here because I know I would butcher it, but we're talking on Twitter, a speedrunner, like from like a game itself. When we look at what the systems and what they're putting into the core aspect of this game, ultimately it'd be really cool to be like see the community from a content creation perspective, but just from things that make things fun. Like how fast could you clear the story in this? How fast, speed running this game could be very apt for that, because then you have a build aspect that maybe favors speed. Maybe that's the maybe that's the trickster, right? It's like there's so many different like components. It'll be interesting to see from a story and a narrative, what are the rules that the community comes up with? Are we doing speed runs? Are we creating our own kind of content and thus a life, giving that, like basically the devs give us a playground to play in, and then the community goes nuts, finds interesting things to do with it, and has a lot of fun with that ultimately in the long run. Now, also Chad agrees with you saying like profanity and saying story is important. And I do agree. The challenge I find with story in a game, the multiplayer game, is that especially when it's not like your first run, like how often are is the story and the exposition being overridden by player chat in that regards? And so is that something where you would find that playing Outriders kind of in a single player way seems more like advantageous to like your enjoyment, and then you have the kind of the multiplayer aspect, or maybe does the game balance itself back and forth in the long run? What do you think about that? Because it is a 3-player multiplayer game and you're playing with your friends, like, are they are you having a mute button on your friends? So you're like, I got to find out what happens. Mute.
That is pretty much spot on. It's like, guys, cutscene, mute. That is it. And they know. It's pretty much been standard for years now. We always do it. As soon as a cutscene triggers or anything. I mean, you remember the Final Fantasy 14 Realm Reborn ending sequence, which was like 14 minutes, I think. It was really long. Yeah, that was the longest mute we held.
Like, guys, I'll be back. And that's kind of one of the things that I want to see. And maybe they have it. I need to figure this out. So if chat knows, feel free, whether you're watching this later, I have a Stream Deck and I want to get a coded mute button so I can mute Discord, because it's like that's usually where I'm hanging out in chat and be like, mute. All right. And then it's like, I wish I could do it in a sense, like the lazy self is like, all right, I'm just gonna be like, so and so has muted, like I'll be right back. Just some auto message for everybody in that case, because it is it is real.
That's what I love about my headset. I can just completely drown all voice chat. I've got a toggle on the side that just completely allows me to drown party chat completely out and just have in-game sound.
Oh, that's great. That's great.
Beautiful.
So when it comes down to obviously the landscape, we know this game is launching on the 1st of April. We know that the demo is coming out on the 25th of February. How do you feel about the fact that we can take progress from the demo into the main game?
Well, I actually think that's a really bold move from
Mhm.
people who can fly. They're pretty much saying, right, guys, this is our game. And if you like it, buy it. If you don't, well, okay. I think it's a really bold move. And it shows that they are really proud and really confident in what they've put out there.
Mhm.
It shows that they've got absolute confidence in their property. They believe that their IP, their game, will sell itself. They don't need to go with all the PR or anything else. They're going to let the demo do that for them. And sure, the game might not be for everyone once you've played it. You know, certain people might not just get invested into the world, but they believe in their product so much that they're allowing you to try it before you buy it. I think that's really bold. And the fact that you can then take that stuff into the main game is pretty astounding, really.
It shows a lot of confidence. Like it
Yeah.
shows a lot of confidence. And that's where, like, for me, and I'm trying not to get mad at anybody because it's like this, it just sounds silly to be like mad at somebody for their opinion. But I see a lot of that, like, oh, this is the next Anthem. Oh, this is the next Anthem from a lot of naysayers. And, the thing is that I hope that it isn't, because like nobody wants that. Nobody wants the game that just kind of flops. But at the same time, like, just people just making that prediction like willy-nilly, I don't think they're actively looking into it. Now, for some people, this could be the next Anthem. I know a lot of people who love Anthem, despite the fact that overall, community-wise, like, it's not accepted. Like, I love, like, I like the thing about Anthem, and this is shifting the Epic Blue Radio focus here for a little bit. We're coming up on 2 years. 2 years. Christian Daly moved over to the Dragon Age, and we haven't heard anything from him about the state of Anthem. He said it was like in good hands, right? What was the whose hand?
Yeah, we just don't know. However, I did check the playing stats on PlayStation because we can actually do that online, and there are 41 or was it 45,000 people still playing Anthem on the PS4.
It was one of the best selling games of 2018.
It was, yeah.
It was one
in
of the
the top
best
5.
selling games. And shouldn't people be saying the next Cyberpunk? Anthem is over 2 years old. Oh, dude, it hurts. It hurts so bad. Cyberpunk, in my mind, is almost a games as a service game now. Like, it's like a games as a service game really kind of means we'll fix it after its launch, right? Like, okay. And that's where Cyberpunk's at. Like, it's like, hey, how's it going? I played on Stadia, had a great time with it, totally flawed, but I enjoyed my experience. And people were like, hey, how is it? And I'm like, I'm testing it out. I'm still wanting to see what I still want to play through like this realized vision of it. But yeah, Anthem is over 2 years old. I think, yeah, you could totally say you have it right that people should be saying that this is the next Cyberpunk. And that's, I think, when you look at delays, I think people have connected two things of why they think this game will fail. And this is from the comments that I've seen in the chat that I've seen. One, it was delayed. And two, that it's kind of this looter shooter aspect, like always online, aspect. And so that people are kind of making those kind of connections. Oh, it's like Anthem. Oh, it's like Cyberpunk because it got delayed. I honestly used to think that like delays were a good thing, but Cyberpunk clearly, is decided to like basically say, hold my beer, okay, yeah, we can really make delays make you nervous. Do you feel like the delay that they put in was needed or warranted?
I think the delay was partially, from what I've been hearing, was partly because of DLSS.
Mm-hmm.
Nvidia, I heard, approached them quite late to incorporate it into Outriders as a feature for PC players.
Mm-hmm.
And as you know, they want to release this game globally at the same time. If you're bringing something like that in at that late of a stage, it needs to go through QA. And if they're doing a normal job, as someone that works in QA right now, I can tell you it's not a overnight job. It is something that's going to take some time.
Yeah.
And in delaying that, I'm assuming they're probably just making sure that everything is fine. They're polishing it just a bit more. But in return for the delay, they're giving you a demo to try out that you can take into the full game. I think that's a fair compromise.
Mm-hmm. So the True Star says, I played Anthem and followed it. The game isn't its best, but it's definitely isn't the case of Outriders. Outriders has that level of polish that they've already been showing off. And that's the thing when they talk about releasing a demo that you can play. I think that it is going to do two things. It's going to help anybody who actually would not have liked this game to try it out and then to move on. So there's no financial risk. And then therefore you don't have these people raging like, oh, I thought this game was supposed to be X. And it's like, we clearly kept saying it's not, but it doesn't matter. You have to like say, you have to keep repeating yourself in the age of the internet just so that it can hopefully reach as many people as possible. And then at the same time, for people who are like on the fence, they can try it and see if it's something for them. But obviously the demo is not going to tell us about Endgame. It's not going to give us a taste of what it's like that once you finish the story and once you've gone into the expositions, like what is that cycle? Is it going to be appealing to you? But the thing is that when you look at it compared to Anthem's Endgame really didn't come out until what the season is like they introduced the Cataclysm, but then the Season of Skulls and then the season of what was the winter season called? I forget, like the Festival of Ice Tide. Thank you. And Ice Tide was like, I thought was great. Like they added so much stuff to the open world. They did so many things that I actually played a lot of Ice Tide and had a really good time with it. And I'm so hopeful that there will be a 2.0 future, something for Anthem. But I just think that when you look at what they're doing here, Anthem 2.0 is going to have to step up. Like it doesn't exist in a bubble, right? They get one more shot, for the 45,000 people who are still actively playing that game, to win back the people who bounced out. What do you think? How does Anthem get saved?
Well, to me, I mean, I've got a separate video for this entirely, for this exact topic.
Is it already up?
But it's not up yet because
Be sure
it's
to
a controversial one. But at this point, because of the way they're actually going, I wouldn't accept anything less than the E3 demo.
Yeah.
The way they've gone all silent, I mean, this isn't a new game. They should still be providing progress. Look at Star Citizen. It's a completely broken game. But you look at them releasing updates every week. Destiny providing updates, good or bad, they're still doing it to their community.
Mm-hmm.
All the other games are doing it except for this one. So I'm expecting something in the region of the E3 demo, and if it doesn't, I think they're going to find out a lot of people will just say no.
Yeah, you gotta like that's what sold Anthem was the E3 demo, and honestly, to me, like I think two things have to happen to hit that. One, it's got to be next gen forward.
It has to be. It's not going to be current gen.
Like why? Don't even worry about it. Like next gen forward. The second thing is, when playing the Division 2, and again, I'm not a Division expert. This is just my hot take. Being out in the open world and how everything's kind of connected, I'm not in all these loading screens. And I think when you look at Anthem's like free roam, that if that connected to the content, if that connected into like going into the dungeons and into the missions, that would have been fun because you're out playing the fun, the fun part of the game. And I think, and that's kind of what looks like they sold us back at E3 2017.
That is exactly what they sold us.
I think they have to hit that as a minimum, and they have to have crossplay, and they have, it's like the list of what they have to do is growing, especially the more time it takes. And at this point, when Christian Daly was talking about it, how they've gone back to the drawing board, I go, maybe this is going to be a 2022 game, if we're lucky. But the fact that they're not giving the community, like we haven't got an update since like October, that in and of itself, I think is the biggest problem they face, because we know we're not getting content in the game. I think you need to at least give the community some form of information. And that's where people, like when you look at Outriders and People Can Fly, like these guys are pumping. Like even the fact that the game got delayed, like we just finished Legendary Armor Week, it's not everything. They're not revealing everything. There's mystery and things like that for us to solve. But
that's the magic.
That's the magic. And they got us talking about it every day. Like I made a video every day this week about Outriders. It's not my intention. Like if there's information to share, like that's the goal. I'm not like somebody was like, oh, farming for topics. I'm like, I literally was asked this. That's the content that I make. And then Outriders this week is this. It has me going this now. What's next week? Is next week Legendary Weapons Week? Or are they going to take a week off? They haven't taken any time off. Like they have been in my feed every day. And so their marketing team, honestly, is firing on all cylinders. They continue to hit the numbers of like no MTX, like, hey, this is no pay to win. This is a full game at release. And I think that in and of itself is what gives me hope for Anthem and Anthem. I'm hopeful for Anthem. The hope for Outriders that it can be a game that can just come out and crush. And I hope here's the dream. Here's the dream that catches everybody off guard. That everybody's like, Outriders, like, okay, like whatever, like, and then all of a sudden, like, demo comes out or April 1st comes out, and all of a sudden everybody's like, this is the game to play. That would be something that, like, that's ideal. Like what happened with Genshin Impact? Like Genshin Impact just dropped, and everybody was like, oh yeah, we want more of that.
Yeah, I'm still playing it.
I haven't played Genshin in a couple of like a month or two. I was like, oh, I'll pick it back up on Switch. I have just been like, so for chat who might not know, and this might be the first episode of Epic Blue Radio for y'all. Like we were doing this podcast, and then I got insanely busy. I was like, I have a podcast channel. It's Ginger Gaming Radio. And then I was like, I think I did one podcast in October. And then it was just like, and okay, I got insanely busy with work. So I haven't played Genshin since like November. Like it was, they came out with the 1.1 update. Now on the second, I think they're coming out with a 1.3 update. And I think it's a gorgeous game, but it honestly has me more excited for Blue Protocol than anything else. Like Genshin Impact, I was like, this is great. Like, oh man, what's going on with Blue Protocol?
Yeah, Blue Protocol's a multiplayer game, right? Not a single player.
It's an MMO. Blue Protocol is an MMORPG, anime style. Like if you guys haven't seen it, I've covered it back like last year. We heard of it before COVID. They were doing closed beta tests, and it's Bandai Namco, so it's a Japanese anime MMO. I was like, is this Sword Art Online? Like it looks like Bandai Namco. Like if y'all haven't been following them, their anime engine looks insane. In freaking sane. Resolve Gaming. I think Resolve, you were actually today's comment of the day on the video says live service is not indicative of a game being content rich. Look at Monster Hunter World. What do you think about that? Are you a Monster Hunter World guy?
I played it for a long time, much longer than I thought I actually would. The Monster Hunter World was actually really, really good.
Yeah.
The end game was what honestly killed it for me.
Okay.
It was way too grindy when the end game first was. You get first introduced to the end game. Mm-hmm. But the actual core of the game was really good. And as Resolve is saying, he's perfectly right, or she. It doesn't need to, it doesn't need to be content rich. It just needs to be enough. And when the content does arrive, it's different enough to make you, okay, this is a new instance, new area, new content, let's go, rather than just having the same, let's say, fates every single time, or same public events every single time, just reskinning everything over and over again. And that's what Monster Hunter did so well, because every time they introduced a new monster, it was different. It reacted differently. It chewed you up differently.
Color. This is just a purple version of that. Yeah,
it beat you up differently. It stomped on you differently. Yeah, I died a lot in that game.
So essentially, like I see a lot of chat talking kind of about also a little bit about Endgame, right? We've talked about it briefly, but you just kind of touched on the differentiator. One of the key aspects that they keep sharing is that Expeditions even has its own story. That is like you have the core game that's going to complete the game. And if you want to walk away at that point, we'll see, I guess, whenever the first DLC or expansion comes out. But the Expeditions is their end game, in which that you have 14 and you clear the 14 and you unlock the Eye of the Storm, which immediately started giving me some Anthem vibes as well, right? Like when we talked about like, oh man, that storm was amazing. And then it never really came to fruition. We ended up getting something different. Right. True. But essentially the Expeditions with the challenge tiers in and of itself, I think is immensely interesting, especially because the key aspect is that no recycled content, that it's either new zones. This is a new story. This is, go ahead. I want you to.
That is absolutely the one thing that stood out. When he turned around and said, these are 15 new areas, no recycled content, I'm pretty sure people are going to be looking for that one tree that was used out in the main game. And then they're going to say, they lied. There's the tree. But
that sounds like a YouTuber in the making. Like it's like,
yeah,
all right,
but yeah, the fact that they're going that far to make sure, because the actual end game takes place pretty much, it kind of joins on from where the main campaign finishes.
mm-hmm.
So the main campaign finishes, something happens that triggers off the expeditions, and then you play through the expeditions and get eventually to the Eye of the Storm, and
Yeah.
then that is complete end game. That is the complete package of the story. So you've got story part one, which is the campaign,
Mm-hmm.
and then you've got the after effect. But I think the fact that they're going that way and actually incorporating a story behind the end game is really, really impressive. And then the fact that it's all no reused assets, it's
Mm-hmm.
all new areas. That's really impressive for a game today. I mean, I know we're saying this like this, and it should be the norm, but we've been used to so much reused assets. Just look at Avengers, for example, or Destiny, and it's refreshing to see something where the developers have gone the extra mile. They've put in the extra detail because they care.
Yeah. And that's why I really want the game to kind of somewhat fly under the radar up until release, so that it's like where the best review that you could give Outriders is kind of what you just said. This is the way it should be. This should be like, and not just like the standard, but it's like delivering on like all aspects. You got good loot, interesting loot. Loot actually changes how you look. Like again, legendary armor weak, as opposed to like the problem also with Avengers is like your look is based off of like your money, right? Or I mean, it's like you can unlock certain like different looks, but like
Money.
getting a piece of loot doesn't like even make you feel good or different, And so then essentially you also have the fact that these are your characters, right? As opposed to like playing an iconic character, you're playing your character. There's a level of investment that you're going to be making. You're making the choices. You can respec your skill tree at any time. So Phantasy Star fans out there, I'm really hopeful for New Genesis, especially that I hope New Genesis changes the way that the skill tree and system works together in that regards, because ultimately, like you have to pay to respec or you have to wait. Outriders respec like go crazy, just respec that, because the other aspect of that is that your build is based off of gear and weapons. I made you laugh. I want to know what
it was. It was Ritvic Raj. His comment made
what they say.
Because bruh, Destiny reused the boss for everything from a strike to a raid boss. Taniks to reuse.
Yeah, I honestly I really hope that I'm really interested to see what Destiny does over the course of this year. But I beyond light, like I love Destiny. Like I've decided that there's no point in complaining about it, because Destiny has 3 seasons. Welcome to the 3 seasons of Destiny, everybody. You have the season of hype, you have the season of grind, and you have the season of bitch. And I'm in the season of bitch right now. I'm just I'm just not going to play it. I'm going to play other games. I'm disappointed that Outriders got delayed, but I'm also in having a good time discovering Division 2. Like, it's been fun. Been playing the Warlords or whatever. I'm level 39. For those of you who've joined me on Monday and Thursday night, I think I'm going to stream again. I'll stream that game again on Monday. So if you guys are Division guys on PC or Stadia, come help me not suck. That's the key aspect. And we'll have to be doing some fun stuff with Outriders, obviously on the 25th in that case. That's really kind of the podcast outline that I had in my head. These are just general chats. Chaos, like, is there anything that stands out to you that, like, any kind of final thought that we want to put on this podcast for Outriders? What you're either looking forward to the most? What are your plans for the 25th? Like, go nuts.
So, one thing that a lot of people like in games like Outriders and looter shooters is the ability to be able to replay the missions freely, not after asking them.
In Anthem.
Not after asking the developers for 6 months to a year, and then they finally put it in a random formation. And from what I'm hearing, you can actually do that in Outriders, which is a really big point.
Yeah.
Because that just shows that they're taking the community feedback. On the 25th, I'm definitely going to be playing. I'm still undecided if I'm going to be on PC or console. Not that it matters, because it's crossplay, right?
Right. Like, play where the hell you want. What platform?
I would have liked it to be cross-save. I really would have
Is
liked
that
it to be
confirmed that
cross
it's
save.
not cross save?
They've currently confirmed that it's not cross save. I just don't think they have the infrastructure built for it because it
Darn it.
needs because the way
Cross save would be
it's
huge.
I mean, because Uplay have actually now started to incorporate cross save
Mm-hmm.
into their games, but they're doing it via the Ubisoft Connect.
Mm-hmm.
And for the older games, you have to upload your save to do it. So maybe at a later stage it will do, because that would easily influence me to buy multiple copies of the game if
Yeah,
I could.
I think that's what we want to see, is that I think developers will see with the feature of cross save that they make more money.
Yeah, because I would buy.
You sell more copies, because especially with cross save, cross play, in my mind, like budgetary wise, I'm gonna get this game on PC now that like my new PC. Like before, I was like, there's no way I'm getting this on PC. This thing's not gonna handle it. So I was like, I was definitely gonna get it on Stadia, and then I was like, well, I guess maybe I'll get it on Xbox. But now I'm just gonna be like, I'll just get it on Stadia and I'll get it on PC, so I can play PC ultra wide, and then I can play Stadia everywhere, because every screen in my house is a
But that's
gaming
the
machine.
thing, you're not going to have the same progress. So you're essentially
Right.
playing two separate games. And
Yeah,
people
that is essentially the same. That is the only like big bummer out of it. The only thing is like, well, I guess what I'll do is I'll pick it up on PC first, and then essentially, if I feel like, man, I would like to play this on more locations, then I will. But the other aspect of it is an M-rated game. Obviously, with the gore and the blood and everything we know, it's not a game I'm going to be playing around my kids. So it's not necessarily a game I need downstairs in the family room. Right? It's like, this might be like, this is dad time. This is dad. I'm gonna go blow up some alien time. Let's go. Kids don't watch this stream. Sometimes my wife will put on my stream for the kids, and it's like, okay, this is definitely not like, no. We're good. Not this one. Same thing with Division 2. It's like, yeah, it's late at night. Kids are in bed. And they scream profanities at me and onto the internet for everyone to enjoy. See, I saw a question in here. I want to make sure that I get back to it. And hey, what's going on, Brutal Expert? We're going to try to get Brutal Expert on the podcast in the future. We weren't able to get synced up today. Stefan, hopefully I'm not butchering your name, asks, do you think we're going to get loadouts? Let's go ahead and answer that question. And then if there's any other questions, and then we'll conclude the podcast. Loadouts, what do you think?
I'm not sure, but I think I actually read that they did want it in there, or they already had it in there. Maybe I saw it somewhere else, but loadouts is essential. If there's one thing that they need to have learned from any other game out there, is that loadouts is fundamental to games like this. If you're switching out gear, it's absolutely needed.
It's just like, let me save that, please.
Yeah. So if it's not there at launch, I think the community is going to moan at them enough to make sure that patch 1.1 will have it.
Yeah, I definitely say that if it's not there at launch, it needs it. Now, the other side of the coin is that if they have an API, we've seen Destiny take advantage of the fact that they don't have loadouts, but you could make them because somebody made an API that allows you to do that. And essentially, there's a strength in an API, where when you look at the success of, even like, whether you like WoW or don't, WoW has an API, 14 doesn't. Now, 14 requires a lot more work on the developers. WoW basically just farms out the work to the community. Destiny kind of farms out that work to the community, and it allows them to hopefully kind of see what sticks and what doesn't. I personally would say loadouts, absolute must. It's so important in Final Fantasy 14 to me. And if they have it in here, and then the fact that you can, if they give you that ability to name it, you could end up being like, I'm going to Technomancer, but I'm going to have, and you don't have to give me unlimited. Like, you can actually force me to make choices, but it give me the ability to kind of easily swap gear, especially as you unlock gear that has certain traits and you want to have certain skill trees, because no one wants to sit around and futz with all of it. And maybe if you do have loadouts, put some rules into it. Like, you can only change your loadout in town. You can't be out in the field and be like, I'm a techno this, and then, I'm going to change my loadout, etc. As a content creator, loadouts would be amazing, because then I could do some builds and then I could show people those builds and in videos and guides format, rather than having to sit here and like honestly, if they don't have it, I'm gonna have to go to pen and paper and be like, okay, this is this, and do math that way, and then try to figure out a way to translate that into the video itself, like, because it ends up making extra work, because it's like, okay, I saved this loadout on a physical piece of paper, and now I have to go rebuild that, and then maybe hopefully I didn't forget anything, and hopefully I can actually read my handwriting, because my handwriting is atrocious. Now, I do want to say before we sign off, I want to let Chaos to get his plugs in. And let you, if you guys aren't following Chaos, be sure to do so. I'll let him have a minute here to tell you guys what he's working on. But if we have any content creators, like again, the best way that you can is tell me if you do content. Like if you do it here, I'm probably going to miss it. But in comments, reach out to me over on Twitter. And we like to get, have a bigger discussion, especially as we get closer, more information about the game comes on. Same thing. If there's a content creator that you follow, if you're not making content, let me know, because that's the best way. A couple of people recommended a few content creators that I've discovered just because I've been excited about Outriders, and it's cool to see other people be excited about it as well. So don't be shy. Let me know in the comments of my videos, or reach out to me over on Twitter. And if you like somebody, or if you're making something, and maybe we can collab and do something like this. I'm hopeful that we could bring Epic Loot Radio back. I don't think it's not in my mind like a weekly, but at least either every other week, or I have a once a month podcast talking about all things in the looter space. And I think I might loop in Phantasy Star Online too as a part of Epic Loot Radio, because I did create a lot of podcasts last year. And ultimately, it's I'll probably have a little bit more refinement into the cast into the podcast series this way. Outriders Insiders, thank you so much for being here. I found you on Twitter because you and Chaos have been chatting it up. Anyway, Chaos, tell people what you're working on and where they can find you, and guys, be sure to go follow this man. He's awesome.
I mainly cover looter shooters from originally I started off with Anthem. Now I started covering a bit of Avengers, but Outriders seems to be the thing I'm on at the moment. You can find me at youtube.com/ChaosPrimeZYT. You can also find me on Twitter at ChaosPrimeZ. If you're into looter shooters and you're into that sort of thing, news, builds, things like that, it's a one-stop shop.
All right. And so everybody, thanks so much for hanging out for this first ever Outriders podcast as a part of Epic Loot Radio. My name is Brian, and this is Epic Loot Radio, episode 11. Thank you for tuning in live or later in the archive. If you have any thoughts, feedback, how we could improve the show, just let me know. I'm always open for suggestions and for feedback. But hopefully we'll see you next time. Take care. And then it should cut back to us. Perfect. All right. I figure we got it. If there's any chat or any questions or things like that, we can wrap up. I'll actually, the nice thing on YouTube is that let me trim it now. Let me trim it. So, any we don't have to, we can wrap up. It is 11:30 and it is just under an hour. I know we started a little bit late, but,
no, that's fine.
Cool.
So what do you think about bosses?
I think essentially my hope for bosses is going to be because if you're going to world tier it, that we see them add in modifiers and traits, because one of the things about bosses is that if it's just, they went from 1,000 hit points to 1,000,000 hit points, and there's not a lot of mechanical aspects to it, that can get dull really quick, right? It works, a boss works once that way, but you need some spice. You need a little bit of variety. And my hope is that as the world tiers go up, bosses they're the traits or their mechanics kind of increase ever so slightly, not to the point where you need to quit your job and run at a boss for a week on Twitch to get a clear. But what do you think?
For me, I like a game that does it really well is Secret World. I'm not sure if you've heard of it.
I have heard of Secret World. I've never actually played Secret World.
It's the story is really good. If you like story, and the gameplay is fun as well, but the story is amazing. Mm-hmm. But the way they do their encounters is that they have 10 tiers, similar to what Outriders is doing. And it starts off with the easiest tier, and as it goes up, every 2 or 3 tiers you'll get a new mechanic, and by the time you get to the 15th tier or the 10th tier, whichever is the highest, it's designed for those that really want to go for the hardest content with all-out mechanics and everything. It's not so much of the bosses having superior HP, but they just add more DPS checks and more mechanics overall that you have to do. And I think that's the way forward if you want to create a fun, engaging. You can have different tiers so everyone can access that content. And that's the most important thing. It needs to be accessible to all. And with expeditions, with the tiers, I think that's good. The fact that they've got from tier 1 all the way to tier 15, I think that's amazing, because no one will feel left out. But if you really want to form a group and go for that boss that's pretty much going to be 4 times the size of you, then which I'm hoping, please, you can do that, and you can challenge yourself with the gear you've got, because ultimately that's where your gear will matter the most, at that pinnacle level. And being able to challenge yourself is going to be pretty damn sweet.
Yeah. So catching up on a little bit in chat, Super Resolve says, I follow Chaos Prime and now more ways to see more Outriders content. Also, shout outs for Brutal and Vulcan, along with like me and you in this case. Maybe we'll see if we can't get Vulcan and Brutal on a podcast talking about Outriders. Is who knows what information is going to drop next week. That's nuts. Michael watching over on Facebook saying Team Devastator. And then see here. And then Riv Tech is saying, just not bullet sponges like the Division. I don't have a problem with bullet sponges because it is an RPG. Like, meaning, like, I don't have an issue if, oh my gosh, things take more, more life. The gear that you get makes you more powerful, because like the worst case scenario is like everything just melts. But there's got to be a balance to it, and I think that balance comes in forms, like you said, like at certain tiers, like, oh, it turns out that unlocks a new thing that they do. They're doing something like that in New World, where like name bosses like will have like 1 to 3 traits or something like that like, oh, this one's going to randomly poison you, or things like that. So it ends up having that kind of impact. So variety is key, though, in any kind of looter. When we're going back after that boss, if it's so much a dance, I think it's gonna be something that like people play and then they're like, yeah, that was fun. I learned that dance and then I moved on. And that's not to say that's necessarily a bad thing in that case. Paul says, apologies, F8. This was already covered. Oh, if 8F, I have my dyslexia. I'm late, but what kind of longevity do you see for Outriders? I see Outriders as a game that will do kind of two things. Like, I think it's going to be a game that gives you the option to keep playing and to try to come up with crazy builds, right? Like, ultimately, they're going to push you into, like, yeah, you want to do crazy builds, go nuts. But it's also going to be a game that I think people can play for the story, and then they can go play another game. And then if Outriders is successful and sells well, that they could come back for new content, for new story content. I like that Outriders isn't selling me some kind of future, but I'm also concerned that, like, if I love the game, like if it's just something like I can't get enough of, I'm going to want to come back. I'm going to want more to do. And so hopefully it's not something that, lets the game successful. And then they're like, oh, well, that was shocking that we made a really good game and people want more. The next update's in 2 years, like the next content, like there's got to be some level of expectation of delivery for more content. What would that turnaround be for you? Like, what do you want? Because I hate the gear treadmills. Like, I'm so tired of gear treadmills in games where it's just like every 3 months, like, by the way, everything you just unlocked is pointless now. Do it again and do the same stuff that you were doing again. It's not like this.
No, I don't want that. Yeah. I'm kind of done with that. I think 6 months is about right for new content.
Yeah.
With 15 expeditions, the campaign, 4 to 6 months is about right for new content to come out.
Mm-hmm. Go ahead and finish. Yeah.
I was going to say Resolve Gaming had a question. Do you feel like min-maxing and getting proper type of synergy between player is going to be pivotal in endgame? I think at the higher difficulties, it absolutely will be.
Yeah.
At the lower tiers, it's going to be a free-for-all. But once you get to the higher tiers, like 10 to 15, you're going to really want to start proper synergizing to make sure you're taking down those enemies before they can take you down.
There's 2 synergies that happen here, right? There's your stats and your build and like how things complement the group. But then there's also player synergy, knowing your team. And the only way you get that option is actually playing with them. So like finding a good team of people that you love to play with and who are like, if you want to go for that upper echelon tier that are all working towards that, you'll find, I think that's going to be where you'll see people doing some crazy stuff in the game versus people who are like, oh man, that's interesting. But that crazy stuff needs to be inviting in a way that it's like, holy crap, like that is, I want to do that. Like if they can create that scenario, you'll end up having, I think, an entire almost market of hungry gamers looking to find and break the game in different ways. Like, okay, did you know if you could build this? And that's where chasing meta ends up can be kind of fun. Brutal asks, what classes are you guys maining, Brian and Chaos, and why? And we answered that at the beginning of the show. You said you're going trickster, and I said I'm going technomancer. But let's do the follow up. Why?
For me, Trix is probably the class that I would least be actually paired with. So I wanted to try something completely different to the norm that I usually play. I'm usually a defensive type of player or just an out and out DPS. But this, I've never really played the rogue style of life, and I think now's a good time to start. Plus, I like the skills that it does. It offers a wide variety of abilities that support the team as well. I've also got a supportive side to me at heart. But there's a lot there that the Trickster does that not only benefits itself in terms of DPS and ability and its overall damage. I also like the way it heals itself because, as you know, in this game, there's no healing outside of the Technomancer. You have to play aggressive in order to heal. You have to get in up close and personal and take your enemies down if you want to stay in the game. And Trickster just seems perfect for that.
And then for me, Technomancer, I love pet classes. I love the fact that you have like turrets and all kinds of things going on. It just gives a lot of interesting context to it. So I'm very happy to play around with that. I was thinking Devastator, but I've had friends. I'm assuming they're here in chat. Chat's been going by pretty quick. That they were like, "Oh, I'll go Devastator." I was like, "Okay, well then I'll go Trickster. I'll go to Techno." Like it's essentially kind of me already kind of thinking of synergy in that regards. I do plan on leveling them all. Like same kind of I like to level. I love XP. Like any kind of game that can keep feeding me XP, I think is going to be important. And in fact, from an end game perspective, if they don't have it at launch, I hope that at some point they either introduce a Paragon system or a system in which that even from just like a bragging rights, like, oh, I'm a level 700 Technomancer or I'm level 30 Technomancer plus 700, just for the hell of it. Like that's how many times I've leveled up by continuing play. So we'll have to wait and see. Now, last question, and then we'll end the kind of the ending. We'll officially end the show. Paul says, "Do you think that if they gave each mod point a value and gave people an allowance, whether they could introduce a balanced PvP that still allowed for incredible builds?" Chaos.
The only way I would see PvP working in a truly balanced environment is if it was separate from the sandbox for PvE. The simple fact is, no matter how they do it, if they're using the skills from PvE, there will always be that one build that's going to outshine everything else. It can never truly be balanced, even with the point allocation system. It's a good idea, but I think ultimately you just need to make it separate and allow people to maybe have substats on the mods that will have a PvP stat only. So here's your PvE stats. It gives you 90% cooldown like the Devastator does with its gear set. But in PvP, it's going to have a 40% cooldown.
Yeah.
And I think that would work. They need to separate it. They can't combine the two together. Otherwise, PvE will suffer for it. Then PvP is going to suffer because it's too OP. And then you'll have the situation you have right now in Destiny.
So I'm going to say no on the PvP, but I'm going to say that I'm a PvPer. And PvP is important because it can help bridge gaps in content, right? It gives players something else. So what I would propose is that rather than going me versus you, go me versus you in a PvE mindset. How many enemies can I kill in a month versus you? Like, what's your high score versus my high score? I think you can gamify PvE in a way that kind of brings in that competitive nature. Nothing speaks to this more than my experience right now in Final Fantasy 14. I'm parsing, I am getting a score, I am using that score to try and better myself because I'm a competitive person in nature. And I think that would ultimately be the way that you can have crazy builds. Looks like somebody needs you. We're about to wrap up. But that's a way that you can have crazy builds and at the same time reward that by gamifying the PvE side of it. And that's just coming down to, like, I think leaderboards is a huge thing for gamers because if it doesn't matter to you, it doesn't matter. No one's going to care that you got a better, like, okay, just go nuts. And then I think leaderboards ultimately are also interesting when it comes down to your friends because, all right, I personally don't have a drive to be the number one on a board, in the world, but I'll compete with my friends, for like, talking trash, be like, dude, Chaos, man, you haven't gone on. I got 1 million kills this week. Dude, what's up?
That's what my kids are for.
Yeah.
They're getting 2 million kills.
Dude, well, exactly. It's like people are like, Brian, you got all these kids. I'm like, they're farming the leaderboard for me. Well, Brian, you're amazing. Like, no, like
Yeah, just flexing there. Yep.
I just created bots that do what I tell you, but they do require food. So it's like, yeah, like that you win and you lose. You win and you lose. Yeah, guys, love you so much. Thanks so much for tuning in for this. If you guys and also 44 likes. Thank you guys for hitting the like button on the stream itself. If you guys hopefully want more, just let me know, because right now I did this to both of the podcast channel and Ginger Prime. I don't ultimately know if because I think this probably the content style deserves more Ginger Gaming Radio. So if you guys haven't hit the subscribe button on Ginger Gaming Radio, the links are on like every video of mine. Also on my main page, you'll see all my multiple channels. So if you guys want to check out that, let me know your thoughts, because do you like the fact that it's here on Ginger Prime, and vice versa? Any and all feedback is what I need. So thanks guys for hanging out. Love you guys. And we'll see you next time.
Take
Bye.
it easy, guys.